The courtroom was silent except for the soft hum of alien technology. Commander Lee Tae-ho stood in the center of the massive chamber, his hands locked in energy chains that glowed blue around his wrists. Above him, 12 alien judges sat on floating platforms, their crystal bodies catching the harsh white light and throwing rainbow patterns across the dark walls. Tae-ho kept his back straight and his chin up. Even now, even here, he would not show fear. The uniform they had let him keep was torn and dirty from 3 months in their prison cells, but he wore it like armor. The Earth Defense Force patch on his shoulder seemed to burn brighter under the alien lights. Judge Velkorth spoke first. His voice came through the translator as a grinding sound like broken glass. Human Commander Lee Tae-ho, you stand accused of crimes against the Pyrathy Empire. 7 of their colony ships, thousands of lives lost. I stand accused, Tae-ho said clearly, not guilty. A wave of angry sounds came from the Pyrathy section of the gallery. Their bodies flickered with inner fire, making the air shimmer with heat. Ambassador Thekra rose from his seat, flames dancing around his obsidian form. He destroyed our ships without warning, Thekra said. His words crackled like burning wood. Innocent families, children, all turned to ash because of this humans. Violence. Tae-ho's jaw tightened. In the upper gallery, he could see his crew watching. Captain Park Ji-woo sat perfectly still, but Tae-ho knew his friend well enough to see the rage burning in his dark eyes. Engineer Kim Soo-jin was crying quietly, her small hands pressed against the barrier that kept the crowd separate from the trial. I gave them 3 warnings, Tae-ho said. 3 chances to stop their attack on the mining station. They had children on board, but they also had weapons. They made their choice. Judge Velkorth's crystal form shifted, colors swirling inside like a storm. The Pyrathy claimed they were seeking only safe passage through human space. The Pyrathy lied. Tae-ho's voice carried clearly through the chamber. We have recordings. They demanded the miners surrender all their equipment and supplies. When the miners refused, the Pyrathy opened fire first. I defended them. More angry sounds from the alien gallery. The crow's flames grew brighter. Lies. Human propaganda. Our people were peaceful. Your people, Tae-ho said, turning to face the Pyrathy ambassador directly, had enough firepower to crack a moon. Peaceful colonists don't need that kind of weapons. The judges spoke among themselves in their own language, a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. Tae-ho waited. He had known this day would come ever since he pulled the trigger on those ships. The political situation had changed. Earth needed allies, and the Pyrathy Empire controlled 3 star systems full of rare metals. 1 human commander was a small price to pay for peace. Judge Velkorth turned back to him. Commander Tae-ho, this court finds your actions to be a violation of galactic law. You destroyed civilian vessels. I destroyed military vessels pretending to be civilian, Tae-ho said. But I understand this court has already made its decision. A ripple went through the gallery. Even the other alien species seemed surprised by his calm acceptance. In the human section, Ji-woo had gone very pale. Soo-jin was shaking her head, tears flowing freely now. You do not deny your guilt, Judge Velkorth asked. I deny nothing, and I regret nothing, Tae-ho said. I saved 3,000 human lives that day. If you want to call that a crime, that's your choice. But I won't apologize for protecting my people. The judges conferred again. The sound grew louder, more agitated. Finally, Judge Velkorth raised one crystal hand for silence. Commander Lee Tae-ho, he said, this court sentences you to exile on the Flame Worlds. You will be transported to Infernus Prime, there to remain until your natural death. The gallery erupted. The human section was on its feet, shouting protests. Several Earth diplomats were frantically speaking into their communication devices, but the Pyrathy section cheered, their bodies flaring with joy until the air above them rippled with heat. Tae-ho closed his eyes for just a moment. The Flame Worlds, everyone knew about them. Prison planets where the temperature never dropped below 800 degrees. Only the Pyrathy could survive there naturally. For any other species, it was a slow and horrible death sentence. When he opened his eyes again, he looked directly at Judge Velkorth. How long do I have? Transport leaves in 1 hour. The judge said, you may say goodbye to your crew. 2 Pyrathy guards moved forward, their steps leaving small scorch marks on the metal floor. Their leader, a tall being whose obsidian skin was veined with flowing lava, gestured for Tae-ho to follow. Commander. Ji-woo's voice cut through the crowd noise. Security barriers flickered as the captain tried to push through. Commander, this isn't over. Earth won't abandon you. Tae-ho turned and found his friend's eyes. Take care of the crew, Captain. That's an order, sir. Soo-jin had broken free of the crowd and was running toward the barrier. Sir, please, there has to be another way. Soo-jin. Tae-ho's voice was gentle. Remember what I taught you about impossible situations. The young engineer stopped running. Her face was streaked with tears, but she stood at attention. Sir, when something seems impossible, look for the angle nobody else sees. That's right, Tae-ho smiled at her. Trust me to find the angle. The Pyrathy guard touched his shoulder, and heat flowed through the contact even with his clothes in the way. Time to go, human. As they led him from the courtroom, Taeho kept his head high. Behind him, he could hear Jiwoo organizing the crew, Sujin wiping her tears, and the sounds of his people refusing to give up hope. The corridor outside was cooler and dimmer. His footsteps echoed alongside the soft hiss of his guards' superheated bodies. In 1 hour, he would be on a ship heading for a world designed to kill him, but as he walked toward what everyone believed was his death, Lee Taeho was already thinking, already planning. The Pyrathy thought fire would break him. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The transport ship shook as it entered the atmosphere of Infernus Prime. Through the small window of his holding cell, Lee Taeho watched the planet grow larger below them. Rivers of molten rock carved bright orange lines across the dark surface. Massive storms of fire swept across continents, leaving trails of destruction that glowed like scars. Beautiful, isn't it? Guard Captain Morthek stood outside the cell, his obsidian body pulsing with inner heat. Your new home, human, the place where your kind comes to die. Taeho didn't answer. He had spent the 3-day journey studying everything he could about Infernus Prime. The planet was a furnace. Surface temperatures reached 800 degrees. In the cool areas, the air itself could burn human lungs. Most prisoners died within 6 hours of landing. Nothing to say, Morthek pressed his face against the energy barrier. The metal around the cell door began to glow red from his heat. Perhaps you're finally understanding what awaits you. I understand, Taeho said quietly. You're going to drop me on a world that's supposed to kill me. But here's what you don't understand. And what is that? Dead man. Taeho looked directly at the Pyrathy guard. I'm very hard to kill. Morthek laughed, a sound like crackling flames. We shall see. Prepare for drop. 2 smaller guards entered the cell area, carrying what looked like a metal coffin. The drop pod was barely large enough for a human body. Thick armor plating covered sensors and a tiny life support system. Standard prisoner delivery. 1 guard explained as they opened the pod. You get basic air recycling and impact protection. Nothing more. Taeho climbed into the pod without resistance. The space was so tight he couldn't move his arms once they sealed him inside. Through a small glass panel, he could see the guards preparing the launch system. Any last words? Human? Morthek's voice came through the pod's communication system.
Yep.
Taeho said, thanks for the ride. The launch system engaged with a sound like thunder. G-forces pressed Taeho deep into the pod's padding as he shot away from the transport ship. Through the tiny window, he watched Infernus Prime rush up to meet him. The pod hit the atmosphere and began to burn. Outside, everything turned orange and red as friction heated the metal shell. The temperature gauge inside the pod climbed rapidly. 50 degrees, 100, 200. Taeho's military environmental suit began to activate its cooling systems. The advanced technology had been designed for the worst battlefields in space. Radiation zones, chemical attacks, extreme temperatures. Earth's engineers had built it to keep a soldier alive in almost any conditions. The pod struck the ground with tremendous force. Metal screamed as it bounced, rolled, and finally came to rest against a ridge of black rock. The impact knocked Taeho unconscious for several minutes. When he woke, the first thing he noticed was the heat. Even with his suit's cooling system running at maximum, sweat poured down his face. The second thing he noticed was that he was still alive. The pod's release mechanism had been damaged in the crash. Taeho had to kick the door 3 times before it finally opened. Heat hit him like a physical blow as he crawled out onto the surface of Infernus Prime. The landscape around him looked like a vision of hell. Black rocks jutted up from ground that glowed dull red with heat. In the distance, a river of lava flowed. Between towering cliffs, the air shimmered constantly, making everything look like it was underwater. Taeho stood slowly, his legs shaky from the rough landing. His suit's temperature readings were climbing steadily. 400 degrees, 500. The cooling system was working hard, but it wouldn't last forever. He needed shelter, fast. The crash had thrown him into a valley between 2 rocky ridges. Following the left ridge, he found what he was looking for after 20 minutes of careful walking. A cave opening, maybe 3 meters wide, cut deep into the rock face. Taeho approached carefully. The cave mouth was cooler than the surrounding area, which meant it went deep enough to escape some of the surface heat. He activated his suit's helmet light and stepped inside. The cave was bigger than it looked from outside. The main passage stretched back into darkness, with several side tunnels branching off. Most importantly, the temperature here was only 300 degrees. Still deadly for most species, but his suit could handle it. As he explored deeper, Taeho made an amazing discovery. The caves weren't natural. Someone had carved them. The walls were too smooth, the angles too precise. Ancient tool marks were still visible in the stone. In one large chamber, he found the remains of what might have been furniture. Stone blocks arranged like seats around a central area. Symbols carved into the walls that his suit's computer couldn't translate. This had been someone's home once, but who? The Pyrathy had used this planet as a prison for over 200 years. They claimed no other species had ever lived here. Yet these caves showed clear signs of intelligent construction. Taeho set up a basic camp in the safest chamber he could find. His suit had enough power for maybe 48 hours of cooling. After that, he would have to find another way to survive. As he worked, something strange began to happen. The intense heat that should have been killing him was becoming more bearable. Not comfortable, but bearable. His body seemed to be adapting faster than should be possible. He checked his suit's medical sensors. His core temperature was stable. His heart rate had actually decreased since landing. According to every piece of medical knowledge in the galaxy, he should be dying. Instead, he felt stronger. Night fell on Infernus Prime. Though the difference was hard to notice, the glowing rocks and lava rivers provided constant light. The temperature dropped to a mere 600 degrees. Teho sat in his cave, eating emergency rations and thinking the Pyrathy expected him to be dead by now. They would check in a few days to confirm, then mark his case closed. But he was alive and getting stronger. More than that, he wasn't alone. As he explored the cave system, he had found other signs of recent habitation. Food scraps, tool marks that looked fresh. Someone else was living in these caves. Other prisoners, others who had survived what was supposed to be certain death. Teho smiled for the first time since his trial. The Pyrathy had made a mistake. They thought fire would destroy him. Instead, it was going to forge him into something new. On his third day in the caves, Teho heard voices. He had been exploring a deeper tunnel when the sound reached him. Quiet conversation in a language he recognized as human. Teho stopped moving and listened carefully. 2 people, maybe 3, speaking in hushed tones about food supplies and guard patrols. Guard patrols, that meant the Pyrathy came down to the surface sometimes. It also meant these people had been here long enough to learn the patterns. Teho followed the voices deeper into the cave system. The tunnel opened into a large chamber lit by a small fire. 3 figures sat around the flames, and all of them looked up when his footsteps echoed in the darkness. "Don't move," said a man's voice. A beam of light hit Teho's face, making him squint. "Who are you, and how did you get past the entrance guards?" "There are no entrance guards," Teho said, raising his hand slowly. "I crashed here 3 days ago. Drop pod from the prison transport." The light lowered slightly. Teho could see his questioner now. A thin man with a beard, wearing clothes that had been patched many times. His skin had a reddish tint that Teho recognized. Long exposure to the planet's heat and radiation. "Recent prisoner?" asked a woman's voice. She stepped into the firelight, and Teho saw she was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and intelligent eyes. "What's your name?" Teho. "Commander, Earth Defense Force." "And you are survivors," said the third person, a stocky man who had been quiet until now. "The question is, are you going to stay that way?" The bearded man studied Teho for a long moment. "I'm Kong Duhayan. Been on this rock for 2 years. This is Choi Yunbai, our resident genius. And that's Park Minho, our security expert." 2 years. Teho couldn't hide his surprise. "How is that possible?" Duhayan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Same way you survived 3 days when you should have died in 3 hours. This planet doesn't kill as fast as the Pyrathy think it does. If you're smart, if you're lucky, and if you're too stubborn to die." Yunbai gestured for Teho to sit by the fire. "Your suit is military grade." That helped, but look at your hands. Teho looked down. His hands were darker than they had been 3 days ago. Not burned, but changed somehow, like they were adapting to the heat. "It happens to everyone who survives the first week," Yunbai explained. "Human bodies are more adaptable than anyone gives us credit for. The heat and radiation actually trigger changes in our metabolism. We become more efficient at processing energy, better at handling extreme temperatures." "You're saying we're evolving?" Teho asked. "I'm saying we're not dying," Minho said bluntly, "which is more than the Pyrathy expected." Duhayan poked the fire with a metal rod. "Tell us about the outside. Is Earth still negotiating with the Empire?" "When I left, yes. My trial was part of the peace process. Sacrifice one commander to keep the politicians happy." "Politicians?" Duhayan spat. "They have no idea what's really happening out here." "What do you mean?" Yunbai and Minho exchanged glances. It was Yunbai who answered. "The Pyrathy aren't just using this planet as a prison. They're using it as a weapons testing ground. New types of heat-based weapons, biological experiments, things that would be illegal anywhere else. And they're not just dropping off prisoners," Minho added. "They're studying us, watching how we adapt, how we survive. We're their lab rats." Teho felt a cold anger building in his chest. "How many others are there, here in the caves?" "Maybe 30, Duhayan said, "scattered across the planet. We estimate 200, maybe more. Most don't last long, but the ones who do, they get strong." "Strong? How?" "Show him," Yunbai said to Minho. The stocky man picked up a piece of metal from beside the fire. It was glowing red hot, but he held it barehanded without flinching. 2 years ago, this would have given me third-degree burns. Now it feels warm. Teho stared. "That's impossible." "So is surviving on a planet with 800-degree temperatures," Duhayan said. "But here we are. Over the next several hours, they told Taeho everything. The cave system extended for kilometers underground, with multiple entrances and hidden chambers. The original inhabitants had been a species called the Ketho, who had built the tunnels as shelters during the planet's violent storms. The Keth had died out centuries ago, but their engineering was still sound. The prisoners had organized themselves into groups for survival. Some focused on gathering food and water. Others worked on tools and shelter. A few brave souls ventured to the surface to scout Parathi activities. But we've never had real leadership, Yunbai said. Everyone's just focused on staying alive day to day. What we need, Minho said, looking directly at Taeho, is someone who thinks bigger than just survival. Someone who can bring the groups together, Duhayan added. Someone with military training. Taeho understood what they were asking. You want me to organize a resistance? We want you to organize an army, Yunbai said quietly. The Parathi think they can just dump people here and forget about them. They think we'll all die quietly and save them the trouble of executions. But we're not dying, Minho said. We're getting stronger, and there are more of us arriving. Every month, an army needs weapons, Taeho pointed out. Duhayan smiled for the first time. Who says we don't have weapons? The Parathi supply convoys have to land somewhere. Their equipment has to be stored somewhere, and we've had 2 years to figure out where. Plus, Yunbai added, some of us were scientists before we became prisoners. I know how to build things. Useful things. Taeho looked around the chamber. These 3 people had survived in conditions that should have killed them. They had adapted, organized, and planned. They weren't just prisoners anymore, they were something new. How many people can you contact? He asked. All of them, Minho said. We have a communication network, runners who carry messages between groups. And they'll listen to you. They'll listen to someone who has a plan, Duhayan said. Someone who can give them hope. Taeho stood up and walked to the chamber entrance. Outside, the planet burned in its eternal fire. The Parathi had sent him here to die. Instead, he had found something they never expected. He had found an army waiting to be born. All right, he said, turning back to the 3 survivors. Let's get started. 2 weeks after meeting his first survivors, Lee Taeho stood before 63 people in the largest chamber of the cave system. The firelight flickered across faces that had been marked by heat and hardship, but every pair of eyes was focused on him with complete attention. The Parathi made a mistake, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. They thought this planet would kill us quietly. They thought we would die alone and forgotten. But we didn't die. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. These were people from dozens of different worlds, all sentenced to the same slow death. But they had survived, and more than that, they had found each other. We are stronger now than when we arrived, Taeho continued. Our bodies have adapted, our minds have sharpened. We have learned to live in conditions that would kill our enemies. The fire that was meant to destroy us has made us into something new. A woman near the back raised her hand. What are you asking us to do? I'm asking you to stop thinking like prisoners, Taeho said. I'm asking you to start thinking like soldiers. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Nam Gide spoke up. He was a former military strategist who had arrived on the planet 6 months ago. You're talking about fighting back. I'm talking about taking control of our own lives, Taeho replied. The Parathi drop supplies here every month. Medical equipment, food, tools. They think they're just maintaining their prison, but they're actually arming us. Yun Hana, a mechanic who had been working on salvaged equipment, nodded slowly. I've been studying their transport ships. The designs are good, but they have weaknesses. And I've been monitoring their communications, added Song Woojin, a former communications officer. Their security protocols are lazy. They don't expect organized resistance. Duhayan stepped forward. Show them what we found yesterday. Unbai moved to the center of the chamber, carrying a metal case. She opened it to reveal components that gleamed in the firelight. Parathi weapons, technology. We captured this from a supply convoy that crashed during the last firestorm. The crowd pressed closer to see. The weapons were clearly advanced, designed to channel and focus heat energy. In the hands of beings who lived in constant fire, they would be devastating. The beautiful thing, Ayambai continued, is that these weapons are designed to be used in extreme heat. They actually work better in high temperatures, and after months on this planet, we can handle heat that would kill normal humans. Taeho picked up one of the weapons. It was heavier than Earth's military rifles, but the weight felt good in his hands. We're not going to just survive anymore. We're going to thrive. Over the following days, they organized into working groups. Nam Gide became the head of military planning, using his strategic knowledge to map Parathi patrol routes and supply schedules. Yunhana led the technical team, studying captured equipment and learning how to repair and modify it. Song Woojin established a communication network that stretched across the entire continent, but the most important change was in the people themselves. The constant struggle for survival had welded them into a tight unit. They no longer saw themselves as separate individuals from different worlds. They were becoming something new. We need a name, Minho said, one evening as the leadership group sat around their planning fire. Something that shows what we've become. The survivors, suggested Hana. Too passive, Jiate said. We're not just surviving anymore. The forged, Yunbai said quietly. We were thrown into the fire and came out stronger. The Forge Coalition, Teiho said, building on her idea. We're not just forged by fire, we're the forge itself. We take the raw materials the Pyrathi give us and turn them into something they never expected. The name stuck. Within days, everyone was using it. The Forge Coalition. It had a sound that spoke of strength and purpose. Their first major operation came 3 weeks later. A Pyrathi supply convoy was scheduled to land at the main depot, carrying food, medical supplies, and equipment for the guard posts. Intelligence from Wujin indicated the convoy would be lightly guarded. This is our chance to prove we're serious, Teiho told the assault team. We go in fast, we take everything useful, and we get out before reinforcements arrive. The depot was located in a valley 5 kilometers from the main cave system. The landing pad was surrounded by prefabricated buildings that served as storage and barracks for the Pyrathi guards. Teiho led 20 fighters down from the ridge at dawn, when the planet's surface was at its coolest. The heat still exceeded 600 degrees. But the coalition members moved through it like it was nothing more than a warm day. The attack went perfectly. The Pyrathi guards, comfortable in their routine, never expected coordinated resistance. Half of them were still in their quarters when the coalition fighters struck. The others were overwhelmed before they could organize a defense. Secure the supplies, Teiho ordered as his team swept through the depot. Everything useful comes with us. They found more than they had hoped for. Medical equipment that would help treat the injuries common to life on Infernus Prime. Communication gear that Wujin immediately recognized as superior to anything they had. Most importantly, they found weapons. Lots of weapons. This is enough to arm 50 people, Hana said, examining the captured rifles. And the ammunition storage is full. But the real prize was in the command center. Anbai had managed to access the Pyrathi computer systems before they wiped them. I downloaded their complete database, she told Teiho as they prepared to withdraw. Guard schedules, supply routes, communication protocols, everything. The withdrawal was as smooth as the attack. By the time Pyrathi reinforcements arrived, the coalition fighters were already back in the caves, distributing their captured supplies to the growing community. That night, as they celebrated their first victory, Teiho stood before the assembled coalition members. Their numbers had grown to over 100 as word spread of the successful raid. Today we proved something important, he said. We proved that we're not victims anymore. We're not prisoners waiting to die. We are the Forge Coalition, and we are taking control of our destiny. The cheers that followed echoed through the cave system, carrying a message that would soon spread to every corner of Infernus Prime. The revolution had begun. 6 months after the first raid, Li Teiho stood in a command center that would have impressed any military officer in the galaxy. The main cave chamber had been transformed into a hub of coordinated resistance. Maps covered the walls, showing not just Infernus Prime, but 16 other flame worlds across the Pyrathi Empire. Status report, he said to the assembled leaders. Song, Wujin stepped forward first. Communications are secure across all networks. We now have contact with prison camps on 14 different worlds. Total estimated coalition strength is approaching 8,000. The number still amazed Teiho. What had started as a handful of survivors had grown into something the Pyrathi had never imagined possible. Equipment status, he asked. Yunhana consulted her tablet. We've successfully captured or disabled 47 Pyrathi installations. Our weapons inventory includes over 2,000 heat rifles, 50 heavy energy cannons, and enough ammunition to fight a proper war. And our people are trained to use them, added Namgita. Every coalition member has completed basic combat training. Squad leaders have advanced tactical instruction. We're not just an angry mob anymore, we're an army. The transformation had been remarkable to watch. People who had arrived on the flame worlds broken and defeated had found purpose and strength. The harsh conditions that were meant to kill them had instead forged them into something unprecedented in galactic history. What about the latest recruitment figures? Teiho asked. That's the best news, said Choi Yunbai. Prisoner ships are arriving more frequently than ever. The Pyrathi are using the flame worlds to dispose of anyone who opposes them politically. But every new prisoner is a potential recruit, and they're arriving angry, Du Heian added with a grim smile. When someone realizes they were sent here to die for speaking against the Empire, they tend to be very motivated to fight back. The past months had seen a steady escalation of operations. What had started as simple supply raids had evolved into coordinated strikes against major installations. The coalition had learned to move between worlds using captured Pyrathi transport ships. They had established supply lines, communication networks, and training facilities. Most importantly, they had begun to develop their own technology. Unbai's team of scientists and engineers had reverse-engineered Pyrathi equipment and begun improving it. heat-resistant armor, enhanced weapons, communication systems that could function in the extreme environments of the flame worlds. Show him the new prototypes, Hannah said to EUN-BY. EUN-BY activated a holographic display. We've developed armor that not only protects against heat, but actually converts thermal energy into power for other systems. A soldier wearing this can fight indefinitely on any flame world. And the weapons? Taeho asked. Enhanced heat rifles with triple the range and power of original Parathi designs. Plus something new. Unbai's eyes lit up with pride. Heat grenades that can melt through ship hulls, perfect for boarding actions. The coalition had also learned from its enemies. Captured Parathi officers had provided valuable intelligence about Empire operations, ship designs, and military protocols. Some had even been recruited to the cause after witnessing the determination and resourcefulness of the human-led resistance. Intelligence update, Taeho said to their newest team leader. Park Soyoung had been a diplomat before her imprisonment. Now she ran the coalition's intelligence network. The Empire is starting to take us seriously. They've tripled security at major installations and begun deploying dedicated military units to hunt us. Good, Taeho said. That means we're hurting them. It also means they're planning something big, Soyoung continued. Our sources indicate a major operation is being prepared. Multiple battle fleets, specialized equipment designed specifically to fight in high-heat environments. How long do we have? Asked Jiete. Best estimate. 3 months before they launch whatever they're planning. The chamber fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. For months, the coalition had grown in strength and confidence. They had begun to believe they were winning, but the Parathi Empire controlled thousands of worlds and commanded massive resources. Recommendations, Taeho asked his council. We accelerate the timeline, Gite said immediately. If they're preparing a major offensive, we strike first. Agreed, said Hana. We have the capabilities now. Our people are trained, our equipment is superior to theirs in high-heat environments, and we know their weaknesses. What kind of operation are you thinking? Taeho asked. Simultaneous strikes across all 17 flame worlds, Gite replied. We hit every major installation at the same time, capture their supplies, free their prisoners, and establish permanent control of the prison planets. That's ambitious, Soyoung said, and dangerous. If we fail, they'll wipe us out completely. If we don't try, they'll wipe us out anyway. Du Hyan pointed out. At least this way we go down fighting. Taeho walked to the main map display. 17 worlds scattered across Parathi space, each one a furnace designed to kill anyone that Empire wanted to dispose of. But they had become something else entirely. They had become the forge where a new kind of resistance was being born. We're not going down, he said finally. We're going up. The Parathi made these worlds to break us, but we've turned them into our greatest strength. No one can fight us in conditions like these. No one can match our determination. He turned to face his council, begin planning for Operation Forge Fire. In 2 months, we take control of every flame world simultaneously. We show the galaxy that the Parathi Empire isn't invincible. And after that, asked EUN-BY. Taeho smiled. After that, we show them what happens when you try to burn humanity. We don't just survive the fire, we become it. The meeting broke up with everyone hurrying to begin preparations. As they left, Taeho remained behind, studying the star map. 17 burning worlds, scattered across hostile space, each one a testament to Parathi cruelty, but also to human resilience. In 2 months, those worlds would no longer be prisons. They would be the foundation of something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. The Forge Coalition was about to become the Forge Empire. The Parathi fleet filled the space above Infernus Prime like a swarm of angry fireflies. 300 ships, ranging from small patrol vessels to massive battlecruisers, all converging on the world that had become the heart of the coalition. Rebellion. Lee Taeho stood on the Bridge of the Liberation, the coalition's flagship. It had once been a Parathi heavy cruiser, captured during a raid on the Scorius system. Now it flew human colors and carried weapons designed by human engineers. Fleet status, he asked. 87 ships ready for battle, reported Admiral Park Ji-woo. His old second-in-command had been rescued from a Parathi prison transport 3 months ago, and the reunion had been emotional for both men. All vessels are crewed and armed. Coalition forces are ready. Through the main view, Taeho could see the enemy fleet taking formation. At its center was a massive dreadnought that dwarfed every other ship in the system. Intelligence reports had identified it as the Flame of Dominion, flagship of Warflame Regent Korthok. Incoming transmission, announced Choi Yun-bai from the communication station. Put it through. The main screen filled with the image of a Parathi unlike any Taeho had seen before, where most Parathi were beings of living flame and obsidian. Korthok burned with the heat of a star. His form was barely contained energy, crackling with power that made the air itself ripple. Commander Lee Taeho. The regent's voice was like the roar of a furnace. I am Warflame Regent Korthok, architect of the Flame Worlds. You have caused considerable trouble. Regent Korthok Teho replied calmly. I've heard about you. Builder of prisons, destroyer of hope. You must be proud of your work. I am proud of my efficiency, Korthak said. The Flame Worlds have disposed of over 50,000 enemies of the Empire. Until you came along, the system was perfect. Perfect for you, maybe, not so perfect for the people you tried to murder. Korthok's flames flared brighter. I offer you one chance. Human, surrender now, and I will grant you a quick death. Continue this rebellion, and I will make your ending last for centuries. Teho looked around the bridge at his crew. These were people who had been sentenced to death by the Pyrathi Empire. People who had survived conditions that should have killed them. People who had found strength in the fire that was meant to consume them. Counteroffer, Teho said. You surrender to us, and we'll let you live long enough to see what your prison worlds have become. You have 47 ships, Korthok said. I have 300. You have untrained prisoners. I have the finest warriors in the Empire. What makes you think you can win? Experienced Teho replied. We've been fighting in conditions that would kill your warriors. We've learned to turn your own weapons against you, and we have something you don't, which is nothing left to lose. Teho cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All ships, battle stations. Operation Forgefire is now active across all 17 worlds. We hold here, we win everywhere. The Coalition fleet moved into formation as Korthak's forces advanced. The Pyrathi ships were larger and more numerous, but they had been designed for conventional space combat. The Coalition vessels had been modified for something entirely different. Heat levels are rising, reported the tactical officer. The tactical officer. The Pyrathi are using thermal weapons. Good, Teho said. Activate the heat collectors. The Coalition ships had been equipped with UNB's revolutionary heat conversion technology. Instead of trying to avoid the Pyrathi thermal weapons, they absorbed the energy and converted it into power for their own systems. Enemy weapons are making us stronger, Jiwoo reported with a grin. All Coalition ships reporting increased power levels. The battle was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Pyrathi fleet unleashed torrents of fire that would have melted conventional ships. But the Coalition vessels thrived in the heat, their weapons growing more powerful with each enemy attack. Boarding pods away, announced the tactical officer. All assault teams are go. This was the Coalition's ultimate strategy. Instead of trying to destroy the Pyrathi ships, they would capture them. Boarding parties equipped with Heterosis armor and enhanced weapons would take control of enemy vessels and turn them against their former masters. First wave has breached the enemy command ship, reported Wu Jin from the communications station. Nam Gyate is leading the assault on the bridge. On the main screen, Teho could see the massive dreadnought being overwhelmed by Coalition fighters. These were people who had learned to fight in temperatures that would kill normal humans. Against them, the Pyrathi advantage in heat-based combat meant nothing. Regent Korthok is requesting another communication, Yuan Bai announced. Put him through. The Pyrathi commander appeared on screen again, but his flames were dimmer now. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship was filled with smoke and the sounds of combat. This is impossible, Korthok said. You cannot defeat the Empire's finest fleet. We're not defeating your fleet, Teho replied. We're capturing it. Every ship you brought here will become part of the Coalition Navy. You are prisoners. Criminals condemned to die. We were prisoners, Teho said. Now we're something else entirely. We're what happens when you try to break humanity and fail. The transmission cut out as Coalition forces reached the enemy bridge. Within minutes, the massive dreadnought was flying Coalition colors. Fleet status. Teho asked. 80% of enemy vessels captured or disabled, Jiwoo reported. The remainder are requesting surrender terms. And the other flame worlds. All 17 worlds are now under Coalition control, Wu Jin announced. Operation Forgefire was a complete success. Teho walked to the viewport and looked out at the captured fleet. 300 Pyrathi ships now flew under Coalition command. But more importantly, the people who had been thrown away to die on burning worlds had proven they could not be broken. Send a message to the Galactic Council, he ordered. Tell them, the flame worlds are no longer Pyrathi territory. Tell them the Coalition claims sovereignty over all 17 systems. Sir Yunbai said quietly, what about the Empire? They won't accept this, Teho smiled. Then they'll learn the same lesson Korthok just learned. We're not prisoners anymore, we're not victims. We are the Forge Coalition, and we've just announced ourselves to the galaxy. Behind him, the bridge crew began cheering. The sound echoed through the ship and across the fleet, carried on open channels to every Coalition world. The fire that was meant to consume them had instead forged them into something new, something strong, something that would reshape the galaxy. 1 year later, Li Teho stood before the Galactic Council once again, but this time, he was not in chains. This time, he wore the uniform of the Free Worlds Coalition. And he stood at a podium reserved for heads of state. The same chamber where he had been sentenced to death now hosted him as an equal among the galaxy's leaders. The irony was not lost on him. Distinguished delegates, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. 1 year ago, I stood in this chamber as a condemned prisoner. Today, I return as the elected leader of the Free Worlds Coalition, representing 17 star systems and over 40 million citizens. The gallery was packed with representatives from across the galaxy. Some looked impressed, others skeptical, and a few openly hostile. The Pyrothi delegation sat in sullen silence, their flames dim with defeat. The transformation of the Flame Worlds has been remarkable, Tejo continued. What were once prison planets designed for slow death are now thriving colonies. Our extreme environment technology has revolutionized mining, manufacturing, and energy production. We have become a major economic power in this sector of the galaxy. In the human section of the gallery, Tejo could see his original crew. Captain Park Ji-woo, now Admiral of the Coalition Navy, sat beside Engineer Kim Soo-jin, who had become the Coalition's Minister of Technology. Their faces showed the pride and amazement of people who had witnessed the impossible become reality. But we have not forgotten where we came from, Tejo said. The coalition was built by people who were thrown away, discarded, condemned to die. We know what it means to be powerless. We know what it means to be forgotten. He paused, letting his words sink in. That is why the coalition has become a sanctuary for the oppressed. Our worlds welcome refugees, political dissidents, and anyone fleeing persecution. We have built a society based on the principle that no one should be abandoned to die. The achievements of the past year were staggering. The 17 flame worlds had been transformed into productive colonies. The coalition's HET-resistant technology had applications far beyond military use. Industries that had been impossible on normal worlds thrived in the extreme conditions. INFER-NUS Prime, once a barren prison world, was now the coalition capital. Its cities were built in the ancient cave systems, expanded and modernized, but retaining the character of the shelters that had saved the first survivors. The population had grown from a few hundred desperate prisoners to over 2 million citizens. The coalition has also become a significant military power, Tejo continued. Our forces are uniquely trained to operate in extreme environments. We have developed technologies that give us advantages in conditions that would be fatal to other armies. We seek peace, but we are prepared to defend ourselves and our allies. The Pyrothi ambassador, a diminished figure compared to the proud beings who had once ruled the Flame Worlds, rose to speak. The Pyrothi Empire does not recognize the legitimacy of this so-called coalition. These are criminals who have seized our territory through violence. Ambassador Veldon Tejo replied calmly. The Pyrothi Empire sent people to your Flame Worlds to die. We chose to live instead. If that makes us criminals in your eyes, so be it. But we are criminals who have built something better than what you destroyed. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Too many civilizations had been impressed by the coalition's achievements. Too many had suffered under Pyrothi rule and welcomed the emergence of a new power that could challenge the empire. When the vote was called, the coalition was formally recognized as a sovereign state by a margin of 2-1. They were granted full membership in the Galactic Council and all the rights and responsibilities that came with it. After the session, Tejo found himself surrounded by diplomats and reporters, but he managed to slip away to a quiet balcony, overlooking the council chambers. Quite a change from the last time you were here, said a familiar voice. Tejo turned to see Kang Du-hien approaching. The former smuggler was now the coalition's Minister of Internal Affairs, responsible for managing the integration of new refugees and prisoners. Sometimes I can hardly believe it's real, Tejo said. A year ago, we were hiding in caves, just trying to survive another day. And now we're recognized as a galactic power, added Choi Yun-bai, joining them on the balcony. As the coalition's science minister, she had overseen the technological developments that made their rapid growth possible. What's next? Asked Song Woo-jin, who had become the coalition's intelligence director. The Pyrothi won't accept this. Peacefully, neither will some of the other empires. Then we'll face whatever comes, Tejo said. We've proven that we can survive anything. We've proven that we can build something better from the ashes of what others tried to destroy. Nam Gyate, now the coalition's defense minister, looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's transparent dome. The galaxy is going to be very different now. A power built by the discarded, the condemned, the forgotten. We're going to change everything. We already have, Tejo said. Every person who was sent to die on a flame world and chose to live instead has changed the course of galactic history. Every prisoner who became a citizen, every victim who became a leader. As they stood together, watching the stars, Tejo reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the courtroom, where he had been sentenced to death. Through the burning hell of Infernus Prime. Through the caves where desperate people had found hope. Through the battles that had forged them into an unstoppable force. The Pyrothi had tried to break them with fire. Instead, they had become the fire itself. A flame that burned not to destroy, but to forge. A flame that turned the discarded into the powerful, the forgotten into the unforgettable. The flames were meant to be our end, Tejo said quietly, but they became our beginning instead. Behind them, the lights of the coalition delegation sparkled like stars. Ahead of them, the galaxy stretched out full of possibilities. The Free Worlds Coalition had announced itself to the universe, and the universe would never be the same. The fire had made them strong. Now they would share that strength with anyone who needed it, anyone who had been cast aside, anyone who refused to accept that their story was over. The flames that were meant to be their end had become their followers instead, and those followers would light the way to a better galaxy for everyone.